Hello and welcome to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. And just like we did the AFC earlier this week, we're going to do a little companion show. We're going to look at the NFC and their biggest team needs, draft needs, free agency needs, holes in the roster, maybe just a vibe check on all the 16 teams in the NFC. To help me do that today, it's my guy, Mr. Verts, Charles McDonald. How you doing today, Chuck?
I'm doing good. That was my first time hearing a little music quit before the show started.
I know.
Feeling very hip hop up in here. Groovy is maybe another word. You know, that was smooth.
It was. Well, groovy. Look at your hat. You got a little Matthew McConaughey hat there. And a little,
depending on who you ask. Some people will associate this with Kevin Hart. You know. That's a little too American because
that was a Two Americas moment. But hey, one came out in the early '90s. Was Kevin Hart relevant there? So I'll go with time there. So, that was a Two Americas moment, though.
there was a. So I bought this hat in New Orleans, the all right hat, and I was with Cam Wolf, NFL Network, when I bought the hat, and the lady, she looked at us and she was like, "When you see this hat, like, what do you think first?" And we were like, Kevin Hart. And she goes, "That's what Black people usually say, but it's actually from the movie, the Days of Confused with Matthew McConaughey." She's like, I used to keep a tally. Like, it's funny to see like who says Kevin Hart and who says Matthew McConaughey. And she was like, there's a pretty clean split on who's saying what.
I actually have a Days of Confused poster behind me. That's right there
you go.
Days confused, right? That party at the Moon Tower. Yeah, but trying to party at the Moon Tower would be good. Trying not to get busted, but no, that's so funny though. That is so truly a Two Americas thing. But like I said, we don't need hats, but the NFC have needs. There we go. I'm transitioning. I'm doing my best here. We're gonna go team by team. One of us will take the lead on each team because we didn't want to do 16 each. So Charles would take the lead to start. We're going to start with the NFC East. Then we're going to alternate, give our thoughts, what we think those holes are, how could they maybe address them, and just other thoughts on these teams in the National Football Conference. So starting off with the NFC East, starting off with America's team, that is the Dallas Cowboys. And Charles, this is your team to start us off. What are some of the team needs when you're looking at the team in Big D, other than better process?
Yeah, I think, this is a team that they didn't get a whole lot done last offseason, right? So let's start small.
Eric Hendricks.
2 things. Right.
That was it. That was truly it.
Hold on. Mike Zimmer did call Linval Joseph too.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
I think so. Defensive line is a good place to start. The Mozzie Smith pick hasn't worked out. He's not what they thought they were getting there, right? No. They don't have a whole lot of cap space this year either. They have minus $4.5 million in cap room projected for next season. So it's not like you're going to be able to make like a whole bunch of upgrades here. You're probably going to be looking more towards the draft and bargaining with free agents, but they need defensive line talent. They kind of got saved when Micah Parsons came back toward the back half of the season. And I don't know if that was just like fear of him or just his own sheer will to kind of get things moving back in order. But they improved a lot once he got in. But still, the run defense is a problem. And, it's kind of like the most simple thing in football. If we don't have to try and pass block Micah Parsons and we can just run the ball, then we can still figure out a way to score points. So, a game that I remember or look back to was kind of like the first or one of the biggest like moments of the Cowboys season was when they got stampeded by Derrick Henry and like literally stampeded by Derrick Henry in the Ravens. So you're just not going to beat many teams or at least get very far in the postseason by having a run defense that bad. So let's start off. Let's spend whatever coins you can find for some big boys, and then maybe if you have time, like in the later portion of the offseason or during the draft, you can try to find some real like wide receiver help for CeeDee Lamb. But I think defensive tackle, wide receiver, those are probably two of the most attainable things that they can fix right now, given their current cap situation.
Yeah, when my eyes went with the Cowboys, they always went to how every other offense could just run all over them. That was just what stood out to me. Even with Parsons coming back, it was still a thing. DeMarcus Lawrence being hurt doesn't help because he's a good run first D end as well. But, he's a free agent now. Oso Odigizua is a free agent as well. He wasn't great against the run. He could be dynamic and he's a kind of a boom bust run player and pass game player, but good player as well. They can restructure a bunch, including Dak's contract. They can get to $77 million in restructures, but the problem is that's like 4, 5, 6, 7. That's after so much restructuring.
Yeah, it's kicking the can down the road quite a bit,
Yep.
Might end up looking like the Saints in a few years.
And they're still waiting on the Parsons stuff, even though we know he's really good. And I don't know, it's better to be the first into the pool of an extension as opposed to last into the pool, because you set the number, you set that, and you base all the other negotiations off of that. So, I don't know why they're dragging their feet, but it's the Cowboys. So, of course, they're dragging their feet on that. But yeah, defensive tackle. It's a great defensive line class overall, which helps them too, always draft wise. And then, maybe if they can address the offensive line a little bit, Zach Martin, we got to figure out what's going on with him. They need Tyler Guyton to have a good year or two. He had such an up and down rookie year with injuries as well. But maybe finding their next guard would really help unless they bring Zach Martin back on like a 1-year vet discount kind of deal. I know he's kind of fallen off, but he's old, but he's still a tangibly solid starter for them. So yeah. And then the secondary receiver stuff is just so paramount to them. I really am optimistic about the run game because they hired Clayton Adams from the Cardinals, and they hired the former offensive line coach from Kansas State, which wouldn't get most people excited, but it gets me excited because Kansas State has a pretty good offensive line the last few years and a creative run game. Connor Riley is his name. He coached Cooper Beebe, the center as well, but pretty inventive. But that signified to me that they're going to be pound the freaking rock. But they need maybe a back. Maybe if they bring Rico Dowdle back, that's another thing. So, but secondary receiver helping out CeeDee Lamb is going to be huge. That's something they've needed. Brandon Cooks was fine, but Brandon Cooks is like a auxiliary receiver now. So right there with you. Spine of the defense, secondary receiver, maybe a guard or something. We'll go from there.
That's probably about all you got, all your assets for the offseason. Unless you do the max restructures and find yourself in 2030 with nothing to do.
Just keep kicking the can, man. At least they can kick the can on Dak and CD. At least they're good players. It's not kicking the can on whatever the Browns and Saints are doing.
No, that's actually smart. It's smart to keep restructuring Deshaun Watson. That's what they tell me.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Hey, it's an interest-free loan. That's what everyone wants to tell me. It's an interest-free loan. Doesn't matter if it's a sunk cost. It's interest-free. That's why you do it. But anyways, we're moving on to the next team who actually does do some interesting cap stuff. That's the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. This is one of my teams. The Eagles, I don't know if you know this, sitting in a pretty good spot. They just won the Super Bowl. That really helps. They also, as far as needs, I had edge. I had linebacker, right guard, and specifically linebacker, second tight end, and kicker. Not bad place to be in if right guard and second tight end are some of your needs. And this is the beauty of what the Eagles do, and kind of the Howie Roseman kind of thing, is they usually have an answer if a guy is going to move on. So I'll start at right guard. They had Mekhi Becton as kind of a 1-year Jeff Stoutland University kind of ad. And Becton had a nice year, solid year, kind of dropped off maybe in the last month or so, had some mistakes and everything. But the thing is, they've had maybe a succession plan there. I don't know if succession is the right word, but someone in the works, in the behind the scenes. That's Tyler Steen, who's played tackle and guard for them. Solid. Okay, I actually liked some reps more than others in the preseason that he's played, but that could be a possible succession plan there if they want to go there. Or they could just address it in the draft. They like to go with the line in the draft. Now, everyone's saying that that's a team building philosophy, like it's new, that we're going to copy what the Eagles are doing. Not like building through the trenches has been football staple team building since day one, since the game has been invented to invest in the trenches. The Eagles just actually do it. But also the other spot I looked at was edge. And the thing is, Josh Sweat is a free agent. Milton Williams is a free agent who plays edge and defensive tackle, more defensive tackle for them, but can bounce outside. But they have Jalix Hunt, who had a nice season, second half of the season especially. And they have Moro Ojamo, who also had a really nice Super Bowl and some other nice moments the last month or two of the season. So they have a succession plan at edge and defensive tackle for the guys that might be moving on. Linebacker, Zach Bond, really great ad. They used him in different ways than he's been used in the NFL. Had an all-pro season, deservedly so, but he is a free agent as well. I think they bring him back, but again, that might be a spot that they might have a hole there as well. And then second tight end, Dallas Goedert, turns 30 this year. He's in the final year of his contract. Still a good player, very good player. Grant Calcaterra is just a speed bump out there. Has to be hidden on most plays. So I thought it's a really good tight end class. So I thought maybe that's a great way to add tight end talent, maybe get a Goddard successor down the road, but at very least give you that another auxiliary target. But man, they got 20. They're 20th in cap space with 13 million. They can restructure to 28 million, which isn't a lot, but they don't have a ton they need to add. Just a couple spots that they can, and they already have some plans on the roster. So it's good to be the Philadelphia Eagles is basically what I'm saying here. The holes there's holes, but they have answers to fill those holes.
Yeah. Speed bump, turnstile, mannequin. Those are some of the favorites. Just when the guys out there just doing nothing, just getting your ass kicked over and over again. Yes. Traffic cone. Yes,
traffic cone. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. No, Grant Calcaterra might be one of the worst blocking tight ends, but worst blocking players in the NFL. So they can do better there.
Super Bowl champion, baby.
Super Bowl champ, man. No one cares. You catch one touchdown in the playoffs, one big play in the playoffs. That's all anyone remembers. And they've been trying to figure out their third receiver, but it's one of those things where it's like you don't really need it. That's why I'd rather them go with a second tight end than a third receiver, and as far as investment and everything, but they have choices and they have means to address those choices. It's like I said, it's a pretty good spot. And where the spots that they have holes, they can find those in the draft. Like if they really are like, well, we really want to have a guard that we invest in. Guess what? Where do you take guards? Late 20s, early 30s. That's where you take guards. Perfect. That's exactly what they need. So good spot. And then maybe they can find a kicker because it's a little rough this year as well. But again, that's not the worst problem in the world. Moving on to a team with a lot more issues. New York Giants. Charles, what do the New York Giants need this offseason and just in general?
A miracle, an act of God,
miracle,
a blessing from the heavens. I mean,
force majeure.
They need everything. They need everything except like defensive line talent, basically. Which is, I mean, it's a good place to start for where they're at. But you need offensive line, you need a quarterback, you need a running back, you need DBs. Probably need another linebacker too. I would say they probably need another edge rusher as well. But you're gonna have to start with quarterback most likely. Because honestly, when I was looking at their depth chart, I was like, man, you should probably trade down. Honestly, like if they had a rookie head coach this year or a first year head coach this year, that would be probably a situation where it's more viable for them to trade down. But with Dable and Schoen trying to save their jobs, they're probably just going to draft a rookie quarterback at 3.
Right.
I just don't really see how you're set up for
not your favorite move.
Yeah, I mean, the more I looked at it, I was like, okay, you got Malik Neighbors, right?
Yep.
Darius Slayton might be gone. You got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, who I don't really know how much is he ever going to be healthy again? I don't know.
Right, that's it. He's an all-pro when he's out there. It's just that he's never healthy. So it's
But but the thing is, okay, so even when he's out there, the other 4 guys, it's not like they're good. Like by the end of the season, they're starting Greg Van Roten at right guard. I didn't even know he was still in the league until I saw him popping up. On the Giants roster late in the season. You got Jermaine Alamunor starting over Evan Neal. I mean, they've just missed so much on this offensive line. Yeah. And they're kind of at the point where it doesn't matter whether Andrew Thomas is out there or not because you have liabilities at multiple spots along the offensive line. So they got to get that fixed. And then, if you can just start to get that fixed, maybe you find like a little backup for Tyron Tracy, who had a good rookie year. I just don't really see how this is a quarterback-friendly spot for a rookie quarterback. But the game's a game, and those guys need to save their jobs. And one of the best ways to save your job is to hope that you can hit the rookie quarterback dice roll, and you get Shador or Ken Ward playing well for you this year. So it maybe not. It probably isn't as dire on defense. I don't know where you're on at Deontay Banks. I thought he was going to play maybe a little better this season.
He had a rough year. Yeah,
I had a rough year. I like him too. It didn't really come together for him this year. So you probably need not even just to replace him, but just to play with him. Probably another cornerback or two. I mean, this roster has very little talent on it outside of like the defensive line. So maybe another year of Hard Knocks with Joe Schoen doing his little media tour. That's what they need to kind of get back in the right direction because he's done such a good job so far.
That's the thing.
They
even
need
just talking about
everything. They need everything.
They do. But even just talking about like Andrew Thomas, it's like, that guy's a true franchise left tackle. You can't rely on him. There's not even the good with the Giants. You can't rely on any of them. And that's what's so tough. Because I think the defense is very close to like being pretty good. Like I was even optimistic about them last year. And then they kind of were crescendoing and then they fell off a cliff at the second half of the year after Dexter Lawrence got hurt. But I like Drew Phillips, their slot. Deonte Banks, I thought was like had Pro Bowl potential, and he looked bad last year. Statistically, eye test, just everything, just not what you want. Tyler Nubin had nice moments too at safety, but again, I'm with you. They need another corner. They need, Thibodeau's Thibodeau, he's whatever. But yeah, they need maybe another pass rusher. Brian Burns has kind of been
just some competition for Thibs as well.
Just another guy there. I keep touching my nose, but another guy there. And then I would think on offense, it's just Neighbors. I like Theo Johnson at tight end. I'm optimistic about him. And I like Tyrone Tracy. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, these are all second-year guys. So you drop in a rookie quarterback. It's not like there's old, reliable vet there that you're like really like he can rely on too. There's not that vet offensive line that rookie quarterback, in theory, can rely on as well. And then you got desperate coaches and a desperate personnel staff. That is just usually not the makeup of a good, successful rookie season or making good, prudent choices for the franchise. Like they set themselves up for this as well. But yeah, they're desperate. I saw some rumors that they might be going more for a vet quarterback. But like, again, it's just you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, what is that building towards? And so, yeah, they need a lot. And it starts at quarterback, and I'm just trying to figure out what works for them.
Also,
kind of drastic.
Which veteran quarterback? Like,
right? Darnold.
Who's making a difference?
You want Darnold
here?
behind a bad O-line? No.
Yeah. Well, Kirk Cousins, like,
behind a bad O-line? No.
See, these are the spots where I look at teams. I'm like, why didn't you just fire everybody? Why are you not starting over from scratch here? Once you have the guys who pay Daniel Jones, tell Jalen Jones to get out of town, those guys need to go too. I feel like it's that simple. So now but now you're in this is like the worst possible spot where you have a team that like look at this roster, verifiably bad. They weren't competitive last season. I mean, we talk all season about how good Dexter Lawrence is, and he's amazing. He's one of the best players in the NFL. But like him going out, that shouldn't be like total epic like collapse of Rome type for your defense. It's bad. It's really bad. And now you have Dable and Schoen with 1 year trying to save their jobs with a roster everyone knows is not good enough to save their jobs. So, like, what are we doing here? The self-scouting from the Giants organization is just so bad. And I don't understand how teams always find themselves up in these situations where you have a team that's not good enough for guys trying to save their jobs. So then you have to kick the rebuild down the can another year. And then you have like Shedeur Sanders next year in 2026 with a GM and a coach who didn't draft him. So now they're not as inclined to like hear about his success in the way if they had drafted him themselves. Now you're back in the mix in like 2027. Like this is where I don't understand how teams like waste all this time. Like let's go fire these guys and move on.
No half measures, man. It's got to be full measures. And so many teams just try to do half measures. Like, oh yeah, and narratively we've addressed that. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it's the hard thing. Like Mara is kind of that old school guy. I give him time. Hey, I trust these guys. And it's like, well, I don't know. These are the guys you want to give time and trust. And also, like, they were the victims of their own success that first year. Dable got coach of the year his rookie year as a head coach. They went to the playoffs. And I think that was like he got the most out of Daniel Jones. And I think, like you said, they should have been really addressing their own self-scouting. Because what told you about that year? Like, we had to do so much to get competent quarterback play out of Jones. Let's re-sign him. And it's like, yeah, I know we gave him a nice kind of team-friendly contract, but you're committed to him. Like that's the narrative that you're setting. It's the precedent that you're setting. Not everything you're doing is just about on-field stuff. It's the messaging that you're sending to the franchise, to the city, to the team. to everybody, to the league. You're going, oh, no, this is our guy. We liked what we saw. We could build off this, as opposed to being realistic and going like, hey, that wasn't enough. Like, we should really refresh this thing. I know we did well. That's a hard answer you have to get to, but you have to be realistic. You have to be realistic about what you are. Like, you do. You have to have some self-awareness, and you do. And I don't know, Dable's never shown that to me. I don't know him, but just like from the outside perspective, it just always just seems like I have all the answers. You guys are dumb and stupid for not knowing that. Just even look, they played the Bucks this year. I wish I could find the doc, because I remember I went on a rant with you, and they just had a full blown meltdown about their kicker. And it wasn't the first time that this had happened with an injured kicker. And he like didn't address it until like an hour before the game. And it's not the first time they've done that. And it's just, I don't know. It's what bad teams do. They have all the smell and indicators of what a bad organization does. And that's kind of how I feel about them still, because they haven't shown me anything to go like, oh, okay, there we go. It's just, nope. Just we keep using the term kicking the can. Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like.
Before we move on, the last thing I have on the Giants was,
go for it.
Yeah, I remember I was at the divisional game after they beat Minnesota in the playoff, in the wildcard round. They go to Philly, and I cover that game. That game was over by like the second quarter, dude. Like, they got smashed in that game, and I'm like listening to them talk about like how they feel good about like what's happened. I'm like, you do? Like, you scraped by the skin of your teeth all season. You beat in the wild card another team in the Vikings that season who also scraped by the skin of their teeth all season. You get smashed by a real playoff contender. And like, you feel good about where you are? Like, dude, you're like a 6-10 team that got a couple lucky breaks. And now you're worse than that. It's just self-scouting. Honesty.
Building off of quicksand. That's what you're doing. It's I know. Again, you have to know how you're winning these games and what your actual weaknesses and strengths are, and go from there and be realistic. I mean, that team you just said that they lost to, the Vikings, they had a double-digit win season that year with a defense coordinator that wasn't doing great, but they kept winning games, one-score game after one-score game after one-score game. That was with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, and now I'm blanking on the defense coordinator's name, longtime vet. What did they do after that season? They got a new defense coordinator. What did they do after the season after that? Got a new quarterback. They did the hard things. They didn't say, no, this got us here. Let's just keep building off that. They said, no, we need change. This is what we need to change.
Is that Ed Donatell?
Ed Donatell, thank you. I knew his name. I was just trying to think of it. But longtime coach. This should be more of an assistant coach, not a coordinator. And I'm so mean right now.
I was Peter
principal.
I have a friend who's a Vikings fan who said he would have rather had Donatello than Ninja Turtle calling plays than Ed Donatello.
I almost said Donatello, and I was like, that's not right. I know. Swear to God, I almost did. But they brought in Flores, and they're not regretting that. Then they moved on from Kirk Cousins, which is really hard to do. They're not regretting that. I think now they have a kind of an interesting choices to make this offseason. But again, you have to do the hard things sometimes. The Rams do this over and over. We committed to Joe Noteboom. All right, he's not good now. All right, shoot, you're not our starter anymore. Like, just all these little things that they do. And I don't know, the Giants just rather just keep kind of putting their head in the sand, like a bunch of ostriches. All right, moving on to a team that has some good vibes, but has some interesting choices to make this offseason. That is the Washington Commanders, who made it to the Final Four. The Commanders, they're third in cap space, $80 million, and they can get up to over 100, like 130 if they do some simple restructures. And that's because they got a whole bunch of free agents, particularly at edge, corner / slot, linebacker, O-line, and receiver. And I just said O-line because I'm not exactly sure what they want. I think it's more just get talent and figure it out, because they kind of reconfigure their guys anyways. But the pending free agents is interesting. This is what Washington wanted to do this year anyways. They're kind of setting the culture. They obviously won more games than I think they even thought they would, because of Jane Daniels' play. The offense really took the league by storm this year. But pending free agents, 5 of their 7 receivers are free agents. Diami Brown, Zacchaeus, Jamison Crowder, Noah Brown, KJ Osborne. Not all amazing, great players, but just kind of showing where they're at depth-wise. 2 of their 4 tight ends are free agents. Zach Ertz, John Bates. Actually, their 2 most significant tight ends. Ben Sinnott was their draft pick, but he kind of was a very auxiliary player for them. I like Bates as a blocker. Ertz had a nice year this year as a receiver. Daniels, the only quarterback under contract. Okay. All their starting offensive linemen coming back, but I would like to see a little more talent injection there. But then on defense, 3 to 4 defensive ends are free agents. Dante Fowler, Farrell, Jalen Holmes. 3 to 4 linebackers are free agents, including Bobby Wagner, who, got some accolades that I don't agree with, but, he set the culture, I would say, for the Commanders, but he still is a free agent.
Lifetime achievement awards.
Yeah, he got some of those. He got there. He got that Cal Ripken Jr. All-Star game in his last season. But then the 2 out of 5 starting defensive backs are free agents, Jeremy Chin included, who had a nice year again. And then Noah Igbenogwinne. God, I never get his name right. Who they moved to the slot because they moved Mike Sainristil outside. So that's why I put corner/slot, because I'm not sure kind of what they think they need to address there. And then Benjamin St. Juste and Derek Forrest are also free agents as well. So they had the money to sign some of these guys back. And even after they lost in the Final Four game, I was trying to figure out exactly, they have to determine what they want back. Okay, do they want Fowler back? I think they will. I think Dan Quinn really likes him. Do they want Bobby Wagner back? All right, he just got all pro and he set the tone in the locker room, but he's kind of a net negative player out there. Do we want to bring him back at his age and everything? Do we want to bring Jeremy Chin back? What's the right price for Jeremy Chin? Or do we want a younger contract? All these things that they have to figure out. So they have holes, but they have the means to fill those holes. I'm just very curious of what they prioritize. And I think that's kind of where, I don't know if it's a question or anything, but it's just more what I want to see the next few months. But I think a secondary receiver and defense is really what I'm focused on for the Commanders for next year.
Yeah, I think defense is next few months. That's where they need to go, because Dan's not going to be the most complicated guy on defense. So talent. That's how they're going to try and get across to beat the Eagles, get back to the championship, get to the Super Bowl. That's obviously their goal after the season they've had. But yeah, they're going to need to get tougher on defense to make that happen. It's funny. Last night I was at the corner store and someone was talking to me about the Commanders. He was like, "Man, there's a Commanders fan who lives on my street." And he was Bodega, greatest city in the world. He was like, "Man, we were right there with the Eagles." Like, what? Really? Were you? Because he's like, you had your moments, but from the first play, I saw the first play, which was like a 70-yard Saquon Barkley touchdown that kind of set the tone for the whole day. Like, you had your moments in spurts, but at the end of the day, you lost by 30 points. So how do you get better? I think the fastest way, just spam front seven upgrades, see if you can find a corner. But I think all the defense stuff comes first over to offense, because at least offense, you've got easy buttons at quarterback.
Yes.
James going to figure some stuff out. Cliff had a good year. You could probably get by. You just add another receiver. But defense, I think you actually did need to make some big strides there.
Yep. And they drafted Luke McCaffrey last year, but I think Luke McCaffrey's role is going to be as a dirty work guy that can kind of your number 3 that can play inside, play outside, just do a lot of, in between things, has good hands. That's why I've been really interested in if they go after a receiver trade wise, or if they draft one in the first, because I understand it, especially if they're not going to do what Cliff used to do and draft a bunch of Smurfs and actually get some guys with size. Like, I'm actually really interested in they go that way, or tight end, because again, this is a good tight end class. So maybe they get a young guy with some juice there. Jane Daniels obviously had some great chemistry with Ertz. That was like him and McLaurin were all reliable for them. So yeah, and I thought they did a good job with the offensive line. Maybe get one guy on day 2 to inject another young guy in there. But man, it's like, defense, and defense. That's where I'm going with, because I think Cliff and Jane Daniels do a lot to mitigate some of the woes on offense. So, all right, we are going to take our first break, and then we're going to come back with the team needs in the NFC West and the NFC South. All right, we are back as we tilt our eyes to the West, the NFC West. We're going to start with the Seattle Seahawks. Stone probably put this team first, because I'm trying to figure out the alphabet here, and I know the Seahawks are not going to be first in any way, shape, or form alphabetically, but the Seahawks. Charles, this is one of your teams. What are some of the team needs for the Chickens?
Offensive line. That's a big one we talked about for the whole season. Obviously Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb's not here.
The whole season. Every discussion.
Ryan Grubb's not here. He was cast off back to the college ranks after, wasn't the worst season, but not good enough.
Not for him.
Not good enough.
Not for him. Yeah.
Not
for
not
everybody.
good enough. So now they have Clint Kubiak, right? Who they're going to run the ball. I don't know if they have the personnel to execute that just yet. They're kind of like in the same space as the Giants up front, where it's like, all right, we got Charles Cross. He's solid. These other dudes, though, I don't know. They still got a lot of work to do in terms of finding starting talent, in terms of finding depth. I mean, they just kind of got their butts kicked up front. And it's funny because I do think, like, to a degree, they have some level of running back talent to mitigate some of the shortcomings. Like Kenneth Walker can go get you an explosive. Charbonnet has some nice games, but overall, they still need some help up front. I think off-ball linebacker is another one that they need help with. I don't know if Ernest Jones is going to be back on the team, but by the end of the season, man, he did not look like he did not look like he did. He couldn't. Right, he couldn't run.
He couldn't run. Yeah.
And in 2025, it's just not going to play. You got to be able to run to play linebacker in the NFL now. And he looked good when he first got there, but he ran out of steam by the end. Didn't have too much, so they probably need linebackers, maybe another pass rusher. But I think offensive line, linebackers, and maybe depending what happens with DK Metcalf, if anything happens with DK Metcalf, maybe another wide receiver. But those are like two big needs. And I was thinking about linebacker, but not linebacker, cornerback, excuse me, particularly on the outside. But I think if you can get just some better linebacker play, you might shore up some of that with how Mike likes to call his defense.
Yeah, and the Seahawks really came into their own the second half of the year.
They did.
The O-line got tweaked, with some injuries that kind of got forced their hand. And then on defense, the Ernest Jones trade and everything, and they kind of like just cleaned a lot of things up, especially against the run. But that's why I'm optimistic about them next year. But no, I kind of I looked at them the same needs. Offensive line, guard, just interior guy, guard in some way, shape, or form. I know they drafted Christian Haynes last year, who I liked, but the offensive kind of line coach and Grubb last year were kind of like, they didn't seem to trust him, which is fine. It happens to rookies all the time, but that one's I'm very curious about. Oluwatimi did a nice job for them at center. But they need a right guard. Who was it? Lamaya. God, I'm going to butcher everyone's names. Did an okay job at right guard, but that's who Griff said that he felt sorry for or felt awful for or was heartbroken. His heart was broken for. Yeah. Still one of my favorite game assessments ever. My heart was broken.
So it played so bad, I'm heartbroken for them. Like, oh man, he's just on the ground the whole game. Tail whipped. Heartbroken for him.
Got whooped. And he's okay though, but they need to address it in some way. They need to address their guards. I actually thought maybe maybe like figuring out the receiver thing. I just maybe would put it as like pass catcher. Like maybe they need one more tight end. I like AJ Barner. No offenses, whatever. I've always been more bullish on him, but he's just so inconsistent. Kubiak loves kind of two tight end looks or a fullback look. I thought maybe that they get one more tight end, and maybe that would be kind of a way to add another pass catcher while also addressing tight ends, get to the offense you want to get to. I'm curious how they deploy the receivers and everything. I think this offense will be interesting with the play action stuff. That's what I'm most optimistic about, tying in the run game with the passing game. I think Geno and Kubiak are a fun little synergy. Like their strengths and weaknesses kind of offset each other. So that's why I'm bullish on them. I actually like that hire. But yeah, off-ball backer, definitely. Another pass rusher, definitely. Some guys were injured last year. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Maybe some of the other spots. Going on to the Arizona Cardinals. This is my team, not just for this whole year, but actually my team for this segment. Arizona Cardinals, though, I said trenches. Edge, D tackle, offensive guard. I would say left tackle and center are solid there. They just have a lot of pending free agents on the defensive line. All of them needle moving guys, not really, but still, decent players. Like Roy Lopez, I really like, and I think he'd be a sneaky good signing for like a contender. I bet the Cardinals try and bring him back. They're fourth in cap space, about $70 million. Other guys like Kaiser White, Baron Browning, who they traded for, free agent, Dennis Gardeck, who's a fun little role-playing pass rusher coming off an injury as well. Tonga was another defensive tackle. It's a free agent. So free agents on their defensive tackles. I'm sure they'll bring one or two back, maybe add another guy, a true pass rusher, another just talent on the defensive line. They do a lot with a little up there. So just actually injecting another first rounder, another day two guy or two to really help them out up there. And then on offense, a long-term right tackle or a guard makes sense to me to maybe take that next step. That's where I'm at. Maybe linebacker, but I think they try and bring Kaiser White back, and then maybe like a speedy receiver to help out Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and take the top off. But I think this is going to be a 2 tight end offense still, sometimes 3 tight end offense. They don't really want to live in 11. We'll see now that Clayton Adams, their offensive line coach, is back or gone. He's with the Cowboys now. They kind of change some things and tweak some things, but I think it's going to be a tight end heavy attack. So speedy receiver is more of a role playing auxiliary role. So, but trenches. And I think that they can really take the next step and not be so, everything has to be pristinely designed, and they can actually get some help and have a little floor raiser from their offensive and defensive line. So that's kind of where I go. I'm optimistic about the Cardinals. I just think that's a good way to address and inject even more talent with them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add.
I know.
I was just looking at some of the Rams depth chart stuff because we were looking at them next year, and I was like, "Who the hell is Alaric Jackson?" I don't even remember that guy.
The tackle.
The tackle. I was like,
he might get paid.
I remember him. Yeah,
he might get paid. He's in and out. That's what they do with that offensive line. They find all these day 3 guys. Yeah, I know. Yeah. The Cardinals. It just like. I mean, I'm really optimistic. Marvin Harrison Jr. They have McBride. Kyler's just got to be more consistent. Connor had an injury after signing Trey Benson. So running back wise, they have 2 guys that I think are tangible carry guys. So offensively, it's like, wow, they're actually set up okay. They just need a couple little more things, especially I think up front. But
I do kind of wonder moving forward. Yeah, I do kind of wonder about them moving forward if this is just what Kyler's going to be. Like, is this just who he is for? And that's so not streaky. Necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's right. The goods make you think like, God damn, like this guy could win the MVP. But the bads are, it seems like when the bads happen, they kind of snowball. And by the end of the game, you've just got nothing. Like, I think it was the second Seahawks game that comes to mind. Where he had a bad one, and then every bad play just seems like something bad's going to happen because something bad happened before. Yes. Man, and there's a lot of guys like that. Like, man, if we could just get him to stop doing that, we'd really be somewhere. But
and then they turn 35
right now. right. And then they retire at some point. But Kyler is he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. But dude, just come on, get it together.
He was leading the league in QBR until like 4 weeks left in the season. His QBR was over 70, and I know QBR is just one stat, but it does give you a nice base mark for like how well you're playing overall. I mean, shoot, he finished with the QBR at 66.5 last year, meaning they should win 2/3 of the games with him playing. But he's 27, and I think it truly is one good, one bad with him. He'll have a game where I'm like, he looked brilliant, and he had a few of those last year where he looked absolutely brilliant. Throwing no-look throws, throwing on time, some creation running. And then he had a couple games, like you're saying, where it was just like, oh, man, like, not even playable. I would bench you. Because he was just he presses. He's a presser. He's a gamer. And sometimes he just presses too much. But you can win with him, man. That's really, if you're not the elite guys, it's like, can we win a Super Bowl with you? You can win a Super Bowl with Kyler. Like, that I, without a doubt, I can say that. And that's why I'm still interested in the Cardinals, because I think all the stuff around them is just getting better and better and better and sounder and sounder and sounder. So that's why I'm still optimistic about the Cardinals. Moving on to Alaric Jackson and the Los Angeles Rams. Charles, this is one of your team. Where do your eyes go for the team needs? Are they just going to throw a whole bunch of day 3 draft picks at it again and figure it all out like they always do?
Probably. It's not a bad strategy, I mean, it's funny because I used to call this team a Madden franchise, and I feel like the more we know about them, it feels true, even to the point where you're playing a Madden franchise and you kind of get to what feels like the end as far as like this iteration of your team, and a lot of people, they just kind of quit. and start a new one. And that's where Sean McVay was like a year ago, or maybe not even a year ago. Because remember, when they almost traded Kupp in season. Yeah. But when they traded Kupp in season, he was moping around. And they had that one good game, I think it was against Indianapolis, or not. I don't know if it was against Indianapolis, but they had the one game where Puka and Kupp and Stafford were on the field together, and they were like, vibes are so good. We're flying high.
Vikings game. Vikings game. Yes. Everything changed after that game. Yes.
Oh, man. But they just ride it wave to wave like that, like a Madden player. And, when you blow all your first-round picks on premium talent to try and win a Super Bowl, you kind of have to just load up on day 3 picks. And they've been able to hit on a good amount of them, honestly, over the past few years. Guys like, Cooper Turner was a 3rd-round pick. Actually, most of them are 3rd-round picks, actually. Yeah.
That counts.
Still, Cooper Turner, Byron Young, those are 2 guys up front that have had really good starts for them. As far as, being impact players on the defensive line have gone. But I do think they need some help in the secondary. It's just the only way, when I was looking at it, the way I was trying to describe it's like it's got a little bit too NPC back there at the defensive back. A bunch of guys who they don't necessarily stink, but you don't have a whole bunch of difference makers or really any difference makers. Just like flat line, solid NFL players out there right now. I think they could definitely use a little bit more out there. But even without that, they were still able to shut down or figure out, how to completely befuddle that Vikings offense in the wild card round. It's not like you're starting from nothing. I just think if you have, if you're able to find a top flight defensive back this offseason, or if you're able to use some of those picks whenever you move Cooper Kupp to get another a cornerback or something like that, you can really send this off to the next level on that side of the ball. And speaking of Cooper Kupp, if they trade him, they're probably going to need another wide receiver to replace him. I think they have some nice specialty guys like Tutu Atwell in a deep ball role is not bad, but if he was going to take a more expanded role and Cooper Kupp leaving, you probably see some deficiencies in the Rams offense. So I think, they're at their best when they've had 2 wide receivers over the past couple of years. I know those 2 wide receivers from Puka and Nakua and Cooper Kupp, so obviously they're going to be at those best when those 2 guys are out there. But still, just having another guy to kind of steady the storm, keep it moving as you get into whatever you're going to do at Matthew Stafford. Just another starting quality wide receiver, I think would be good for them.
And that's the thing too, is Stafford might be on the move. Which changes this whole discussion. But I'm with you. If I were just saying, they're keeping Stafford, okay, they're trying to keep this good times going. Adding DB talent. It was basically they lived and died by their pass rush winning, which was great when that pass rush was first in the league for a few weeks, and was generating pressures as much as anybody with all the young guys that they have, which is a credit to them hiring all those guys drafting all those guys, identifying the guys, Byron Young, Fisk, Kobe Turner, like you brought up, even Bobby Brown was a good kind of a plugger. He's a free agent though too. On top of what's his friggin' face? Oh, Jared Verse, who was defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah.
But the thing was, they were built to create free rushers and to create a lot of one-on-ones up front, because they said, you can't block all these guys, and we're going to hold up for 3 seconds. And if you block us up for 3 seconds, oh boy. Oh boy. All right. We'll hold on to our hats. That's where adding talent on the back end is where not everything has to be perfectly coached up and perfectly schemed up and perfectly opponent scouted, and put a lot on Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, whose stock in my eyes has shot through the roof. What he's done, obviously recognize the last name, but seeing him controlling that defense, I thought they did some really cool creative things. I thought they used their talent really well. They had even more talent on the back end. It's wow, that could be a real kind of needle moving unit on top of more of an interesting unit. I thought that they were this year. They can restructure some stuff and get some money. With you on the receiver thing, they would try to go to more 2 tight end looks last year, signing Colby Parkinson and stuff. Once Higbee got back from injury, Allen was in there as well. But so that's I'm curious. It's do they need the 3 receivers? Yada yada. But they, no matter what, are going to need a second guy, because DeMarcus Robinson's also free agent as well. So I think he nailed what they need. But they shift and mold with with the best of them, as far as like revamp themselves, even with McVay trying to quit all the time. They keep molding and shifting. So we'll just see what that next step is for him.
Just keep giving McVay, just keep giving Sean puzzles to solve, and maybe he'll stick around for another 10 years.
He gets off on it, man. I think he does. Yeah. I don't think they had more fun McVay did than when he had to start like Wolford and stuff when Goff got hurt a few years ago, right before they traded him.
Yes.
And then also this year when all those guys were hurt, the Bears game was one that stands out in my brain. All the receivers and everybody were hurt. And he's like doing all this stuff and still like the run game was really good. I think McVay loves that, going like, all right, I just have a quarterback that can throw it 20 yards on a line and I got a decent run game. Yeah. How do I win a ball game? I don't know. He's a sicko. So that's how he gets off on stuff. All right, moving on to the San Francisco 49ers, which is one of my teams. And I'm just going to keep pounding away at this until they do it. Draft a freaking offensive lineman in the first round. Get some pedigree up there that they need it. All the other injuries that happened with the skill guys and everything, that's where I felt like, who cares who's at running back? Like and who cares if it's a Shanahan scheme? Just lift your floor up. So offensive line, corner. I also put defensive tackle because they have Javon Hargrave has already been cut as a post June 1st designation. So that was for salary cap stuff. Edge is another ways too, opposite Nick Bosa, and then linebacker and safety. Actually more needs than you would think because some of the guys are moving on. This is the problem when you have so many good players. But yeah, I think offensive line, corner, because Charvarius Ward is now a free agent. He also had just a weird year last year, off-field tragedy stuff. He had injuries, so that's just kind of like, that's just tough to like what's going to go on even with his life and his career. But Hargrave injured, now gone. They need a defensive tackle. So I think defensive tackle, corner, offensive line, trenches, and corner, basically. That's where I look at for the 49ers because I think they have plenty of investment in the receiver room. They already have George Kittle. So I just really do think that's where my eyes are going as far as like what they need to address and what they need to add on to kind of get them back into a winning team.
Yeah, I think if you're just staring where the 49ers are, it's a little flimsy right now where they are. Like they're just kind of feel like in flux. You got this Brock Purdy situation looming over your head too, as far as the contract goes. I feel like when you don't know what you should be doing, you got a little confused. There's one tried and true formula: just draft fat guys, sign fat guys, go get offensive linemen, go get defensive linemen. We can at least look like a football team if we can move the other team, and that's always going to be true. So I'm with you. Like when you start listing out all of the needs that they have, it gets me a little overwhelming, I think. So let's just add some offensive linemen. Get back to kicking ass up front, add some defensive linemen, maybe try and find a Hargrave replacement. But that's where I would start. And then everything else can kind of fall in where it needs to. But the offensive line, like that's kind of been an area where they've needed some juice for a while now. So to even get started this offseason, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. And if you don't have, like I said, if you don't have a whole lot of guidance on where to start this offseason, just start plugging away at offensive line, defensive line.
Default to fatties. I like that. It's because Trent Williams is like 35, 36. And so Trent Williams, Aaron Banks is a free agent. Jake Brendel is a fine center. I'll give him fine. He's perfect for this offense. He's fine. But it's not like he has pedigree. Dominic Pooney was a great find for him. The right guard, third round pick. Okay, so there's one young offensive lineman. Colton McKivitz has been a glaring hole at right tackle for several years now that they've had to. I can't believe they still haven't addressed that. So that's why I just say O-line. It's like just get someone with talent, and they're picking in a spot where they can find, even if a guy's a tweener like Mbao from Mizzou or something like that. It's like he's good for you. Get him somewhere on your line. So, and also Hafanga's a free agent. Dre Greenlaw's a free agent. So again, it's just these guys that they could rely on that faced injuries are now becoming free agents. So I'm just curious, like if they bring them back, where they move on from, if they draft them. They just have some curious choices to make for a team that I've kind of been able to kind of set my clock to them that they're going to have a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense for the last few years. So they've kind of need some mouthwash a little bit. We're going to the NFC South, and we're starting with the Atlanta Falcons. And I believe that's your team, Charles McDonald, the Atlanta Falcons. What do they need?
In a while.
I know. It's been refreshing. What do the Atlanta Falcons need, Charles? Not quarterback. I can tell you that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No running back. How about that? Yeah, I'll say not running back.
Not running back. Not wide receiver one. So yeah, could be worse. You could just take this, like, if you've ever looked at a Falcons team needs page since 2012 and copied and pasted it to 2025, you would still be correct. Defense. And I'm seeing the screen about what's next for the Falcons. I'm looking at minus $12 million in cap space with 3 draft picks. Man. I mean, they need a lot. Like, they need pass rush. They need help covering a cornerback. They need linebacker help because Troy Anderson can't stay healthy. It's not a great spot to be in. Yeah, I'm not really expecting too much this offseason because they found themselves in poor situations due to, what I would call overzealous, asset management, especially with the Matt Judon trade last year. Yeah, hubris is the term. And I look, if I was them, I would not want that quote of "we're not going to be back in range to draft a quarterback for a long time," because they were not a great football team this year. Obviously, but you go 6-3, and start the season 6-3, you end up 8-9 or 7-10. I think it's 8-9. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. That's not a losing record to be in. So a losing record. You were 6-3 and you finished the season with a losing record. That's like actually difficult to do when you start looking at how many other NFL games are coin flips. That you would lose that many.
And you play in the NFC South.
Right. You would lose that many after starting off 6-3. Actually kind of difficult to do. But it'll be easier to play football with the defense. Like literally name a position, they need it. Defensive tackle, need one. Pass rusher, need one. Linebacker, need one. Cornerback, need one. Another safety outside of Jesse Bates, need one. So it's dire. But like I said, they don't have any money or draft picks, so
it should be smooth sailing for me.
Should be good next year. And and once you get past the defense, they could definitely use some upgrades off the tackles. Yeah, they need a center. Probably need at minimum like some real receiving competition time, some real tight end competition for Kyle Pitts. I would say, if you get time, maybe a wide receiver 3, but like with what is on the docket, and what you need to fix, that's so far down the list that I didn't even bother thinking about it. Just try and find some defense, try and get yourself into a somewhat cap healthy situation where you can sign any players. Because right now, I mean, they haven't even cut Kirk Cousins yet. So that's going to be more dead cap they have to deal with. They botched it. This offseason is going to be very bad. Yeah. I keep seeing Falcons fans like, who are we going to sign? Like, are we going to go out and sign like a premium cornerback? What are you talking about, dude? Like, let's just get to Green. Let's try and get like under the cap, and let's see where we are then. But you need to nail your first round pick.
They need a safety. They need a slot. They need a corner. They need pass rush since the dawn of time.
Grady Jarrett's
kind of felt like last year was the year for him. Felt like last year was the year for the push. Almost like, if Arthur Smith got one more year, it would have been a good year for a push. But, it
would have been fine. Yeah, but whatever.
It would have been fine.
Whatever. They found themselves in purgatory. If Penix stinks, then I guess he's have to restart. Or that's what they're hoping for. Like, he needs to be damn good next year because they're not going to be able to upgrade this team all that much.
This is why they said, like, we're not letting Mahomes happen again. That was Terry's line. We're not letting, even though he was not part of that scouting process. That was it. We're not letting Mahomes get away again because he had heard Sean Payton liked Mahomes. And I was like, okay, is Penix Mahomes? We'll see. Oh, thanks for that. That was good. Thanks for that. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers, who had a worse record, but have better vibes somehow than the Falcons, at least to me. Panthers, though, had the worst or one of the worst defenses anyway you shake it last year. So to me, it's defense, edge, defensive tackle, corner, linebacker. Any Is there a spot I'm not naming there? Safety. Okay, so basically any defensive spot they could hire, they could sign or draft a guy, and I would totally understand it. I think in the draft they're set up perfectly to draft a defensive lineman. Derek Brown will come back from injury. They can at least get a little rejuvenation there up front. So either if it's defensive tackle or edge, I think it makes sense for them. Corner as well. Horn's a nice player, but just getting another corner in there. Center as well. Their center is a free agent, Corbett. I'm saying so many C words. And then linebacker Shaq Thompson is a free agent. He's getting a little older and all that. And so we go to, and then receiver, which is just kind of like, I like Coker. I like Thielen, but Thielen's getting older. Tommy Tremble's a fine tight end, but so like another pass catcher wouldn't be the worst thing, but they've also drafted Xavier Legette. They've injected some talent into there. So maybe they're trying to get more out of that. So I don't see that as a total need because I kind of like a little bit of the pieces they have. And I think that's a down the road kind of add, but defense. It's what they need. It's obvious stat wise, eye test. They did some interesting things. Evero does some interesting things, but also felt like, yeah, I know what my talent is. Let's just not get blown out by 50 every game. That's what kind of felt like sometimes too. But defense, Carolina Panthers, draft it, develop it. It's what you need. And hopefully your quarterback just continues his upward trajectory. I think that's it for the Panthers. I think do they have all their picks? They don't have their second. Yes. I should have some of that graphic as it came across. I think they're missing their second round pick because they traded that to the Bears. Yes, they have the Rams second rounder. That's it. They have two. That's right. So they have the Rams second rounder. They do not have their own. So yeah, they can get it though. I don't think all these. It's pretty easy sometimes when the needs are this glaring. Just throw a bunch of talent at it and just draft and invest in it. I think that's where you go from there. They got a decent offensive line, which is nice as well. Joe Gilbert, your assistant coach of the year, I believe, is still their offensive line coach. Right. Yeah, so I think center, just bring the guy back and just don't overthink it there. But go from there, draft defensive line. I think that's it for the Panthers.
I was a smidge surprised because when you look at like just performance and statistics, like I was surprised no one tried to poach him for like run game coordinator or something like that. Joe Gilbert. Right. I don't know. I might have tried. I mean, he had this crappy ass team that couldn't block anyone a year ago, and now look at them.
Another decent, I know, right? And confident, they can pick up blitzes and stuff. Wow, I know they were good against the blitz, and the run game's rocked. I love the run game the second half of the year, especially. I know I'm curious too. Right, what happens to that? Sometimes it's got to be the winning team, and it's easier to sell. You're like, oh, we got the guy from this team. Well, the Cowboys just went with Clayton Adams from the Cardinals. That's not like the splashiest hire. I really like that. So yeah, it's a good point though. Yeah, and Gilbert's been around. He's got a lot of friends in the industry. Getting in to the next team, who won the NFC South. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Charles, this is one of your teams. Actually, a team that we've been doing mocks, I've been kind of going like, maybe this, like I haven't really found one I really love, but what were some of the team needs that you had for the Bucs this offseason?
I think they just kind of need like to refresh on defense. Linebackers is a big spot.
Yep.
Levante David, he's going to get his jersey retired by the team. But he's getting up there. I was going to try to soften the blow, he's going to get his jersey retired by the team. Is kind of saying he's old in a nice spot. Yep. He's been there so damn long. But he's not his best self anymore. I think he's even still mulling if he wants to continue playing right now. So you're kind of at that point in his career. Played like it too last year. If we're going to keep it a buck. So I think you just need to get younger, get faster at linebacker, which I will say, we talk about it all the time in our chats off of this podcast. It's hard to find linebackers in college football right now, man. It is. Or guys that are like NFL ready. So, you might not get an immediate fix, but maybe you can just draft someone who runs like a 4.4 and just kind of hope it works out. Maybe like the Chargers did with Dane Henley, even though maybe he wasn't quite as bad as these other guys that are coming out when he was coming out. So I think, you look at linebacker, off ball, probably pass rush. Cornerback too. I think they could use some more help out there. Really, just all defense, because the defense was the biggest problem with this team, which is kind of a shift from where it's been over the past few years. Because under Bowles, they've mostly had good defenses, but I think this year is where you really saw some of the attrition over the last few years and just guys getting straight up older. Moving on and hitting the back nine on their career. So defense. Then if you're going to go to offense. See what happens with Chris Godwin. See if maybe you can bring him back on a smaller deal because he got hurt last year. But you're probably going to need another wide receiver too, even though you did have Jalen McMillan, have a breakout year as a rookie.
Yeah. I think they inject defensive talent some way, shape, or form. That's kind of what I look at too. They had the DB injuries last year, but it always just kind of felt like a little incomplete. DB maybe, but linebacker is where. What's funny, it was the second part, kind of like I never knew who to mock him to, but then I started always giving him Jahad Campbell from Alabama. It's like, okay, the guy that linebacker one, they need a linebacker, boom, done. That was kind of, and it fits perfectly where I think he should go, late 20s or somewhere in the 20s or 30s. So that was one match that does make sense. But like, man, they got a sick offensive line. They might lose their left guard, Ben Bredesen, who deserves to get paid. They keep their offensive line coach, though, which is nice. You bring up a receiver, and it's like, man, but they do have succession plans there. They have guys at tight end they can play. The running back room is good now. They have 3 guys that they can play a running back. Baker is fine. Yeah. Like the Bucs do a good job, man. Like Jason Light does a good job of just always having to make sure the right guys and the succession plan. And I think pass rush wise, defensive line wise, they have a lot of nice players and fine players, but maybe not that guy you're terrified of. Vita Vea you're terrified of in the run game, but it's like they don't have that guy you're like, oh, we got to chip this guy. It's like, yeah, we got to block up Kalijah Cansey from in the middle, but it's like it's not an edge rusher or something. It's more designed with blitzes and everything. So I'm with you. So defensive injection of talent, young talent is probably a good way to put it. Moving on to the Saints, who have quite a few needs, Charles. I put up here edge, I think, first and foremost is a need. Peyton Turner and Chase Young are free agents. Cameron Jordan is 36. So edge is where my mind went originally.
Minus 54 million.
Cap space is ridiculous, man. I didn't even put it in my notes because I was just like negative. I know it's at the bottom. I know they're 32nd. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. I don't even need to know the exact number. It's over 50 million that they're below. Below the cap number right now. I also said safety. Malachi Starks has been a team from Georgia as I feel like a good fit. If they did want to go safety in the first round, it might be a little high, but who knows? He's a tangibly good player that does a lot of creative stuff or can do a lot of creative stuff. And I think safety has been a big weakness for them, just tackling. It just keep coming back to it. They had some embarrassing performances as tackling last year, and I think just they need a revamp in that sense. But other spots, offensive line, Patrick Lucas, there's a free agent. Penning played okay last year. I don't think he's a keeper though, so maybe tackle again. Another corner could help, and just a pass catcher as well. You have Chris Olave, health concerns. MVS is a free agent. That's like Derek Carr's favorite target, weirdly enough. Juwan Johnson is a free agent at tight end. So just another pass catcher, especially but you don't know what's happening with Olave and his concussions and everything. That's a little scary. But I do think that's another area that they can add. So safety, edge, corner, pass catchers, all the auxiliary stuff on the outside. Maybe give Spencer Rattler some reps. I think that's a team need as well. just continue start the youth movement there. Start ripping the Band-Aids off at all the other positions we have some older players at.
Yeah, it's funny looking at it because we were talking about with the Cowboys and they could max restructure this and get to $80 million free. But this is the downside of doing something like that, right? Like there's a cautionary tale, not too far away. Just look over the water to Louisiana. It's right there. It's funny because when you start looking at some of the contracts on this team in a vacuum, this is prime time to cut Derek Carr and cut your losses and move on. But you can't really eat more dead cap than you already are at this point, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult. So, they're probably going to have to play the restructure game again just to get under. which is just crazy. I mean, this has been going on for so long at this point. I mean, when was the last time Drew Brees played a game? Like, he's going to be up for the Hall of Fame soon, you know?
Yeah.
And you're still doing this.
Yeah.
Like, you're still going to be dealing with cap restructures from that as he's making his Hall of Fame speech. Because it's been like 3 years since he's played, 4 years since he's played. I just can't. I really can't believe that they found themselves in that spot again. Like, when did Drew Brees retire?
2020? 2021? No, now I'm trying to look it up. If I can find his dead money, I can find that.
Yeah. Okay. The last time, 2020. 2020. It's right? Been 5 years since he played, and you still have these cap hits that you're dealing with, and these restructures that you're dealing with. I don't understand. Like, at what point do you just say stop and let's just eat this medicine and keep it moving? But this is not the year because they still need to restructure more.
You know who's eating up 11.5% of their cap next year, which is the second highest cap hit on their entire roster. Any guesses?
Ooh, is this Jameis?
No, but Jameis Winston is eating up $7.5 million, which is 2.5%, 2.7%.
Who's 11%?
Marshawn Lattimore, who they just traded. This is why they got a decent pick back. Marshawn Lattimore's cap hit next year, which is dead cap, $31.66 million to not play for the Saints next year. That's why they got a decent pick back. I will say that.
Yeah,
11.5%. That's the second highest cap hit on their entire roster, and he's not even playing for them. And then even two guys, Chase Young, who's a free agent right now, has a cap hit of $9 million. He's a free agent. And he has a cap hit of $9 million next year already. So even though they don't re-sign him because they do the void years. Juwan Johnson, who's a free agent, has a cap hit of $6.5 million. We could do this all day with the Saints contract stuff, but this is the mess that they got themselves in. So they just got to freaking take their medicine at some point. Please do it, Mickey Loomis. I don't know if you will ever, but yeah, they need to figure that out and refresh the books because it's just so so bad when you just look at that how their dead caps are. Michael Thomas is still has a cap hit in 2025 of $9.1 million. Michael Thomas's cap hit for the Saints is 3.3% next year. That's bigger than it's bigger. It's a percent more than Chris Olave next year. So
it's crazy.
That's the Saints. And Michael Thomas hasn't played in 4 years?
Yeah. The Saints the Saints, like they encapsulate a lot of frustrating cap arguments that people have where people say, oh, cap is fake. I mean, look at the Saints. Like, they get underneath the cap every year. Yeah. Okay, sure.
You can charge anything to a credit card.
Yes, you can get under the cap, fine, whatever. But look at the quality of players you can add with that cap base. Like, it's the logical leap. Like, many people aren't getting to. Okay, sure, we got underneath the cap. Right, opportunity cost. Yeah. We got underneath the cap. All right, we were able to chisel down from 54 million over to get under it, which they will do in the next month. They will figure out a way to do it.
They have to do it.
They have to do it.
They have to sign the draft picks.
It's not like we have a choice to. Like, they have to do it, so they will do it, and they'll figure out a way so they're cap compliant by the time the new league year starts off. But then you can't sign anybody. That's the point. That's the problem. So I wish people would just think about that. You know, yes, you can get underneath the cap. Yes, every team, the Falcons who are totally over, they can get under the cap. But what can you add once you get there is what's next. That a lot of people, they're still not thinking about. And the Saints, like, it's staring you right in the face. As you've watched this team, you know, we talked 2 years ago when they started doing these restructures. It's like, oh man, like, you're doubling down on a team that's like an 8-win team at best.
Yes.
And that team gets older. That team, you know, you lose players to free agency. You lose players like Marshawn Lattimore to trade.
Yep.
Okay, but you can't add anybody to replace them. You know, that's the problem. So they're going to stink this year. I would just give Spencer Rattler the whole season, honestly. Just say, screw it.
Yeah.
Rip the band off. Kellen should have house money for like 2 seasons at least. Yep. Let's just go see what Spencer's got.
This should be a tryout year. Any young guy that they have, like, hey, give him a shot. Is this guy that we can build off? That's what they should do. Yeah. Okay, last cap it for them, and then we'll move on. In 2026, Cameron Jordan, his void cap, because he won't be under contract anymore, will take up 5% of the Saints cap.
Oh, God.
In 2026, he'll be 37 years old. Taysom Hill will be taking up 3.3% at 36 years old. Demario Davis will be taking up 3%. We can just do this on and on. It's just, they're their own thing. But we'll be taking our last break, and we'll get back to some more somewhat normal teams in the NFC North. All right, we are back with our last division in the NFC. That is the NFC North, the black and blue division. Charles, the first team is the Chicago Bears. Where are you going with their team needs? Is it center? Because it should be center.
Center, left tackle, guard.
Everything but right tackle.
Everything but right tackle. Yeah, I did put offensive line times 5, but that was just me being lazy. It should have been times 4, possibly. Definitely center for sure. But Donald Wright, you're good. You're good at right tackle.
Yeah.
Okay, now
you can get in.
Yeah, you're good at right tackle. The rest of it, I would say outside of that, dude, that's just such a pressing need because I just don't know. By the end of the season, they just weren't really functional. They had moments, but it just wasn't good enough. Blocking wasn't good enough. Scheme wasn't good enough. Nothing was really good enough. So I think they're just going to have to, rip the Band-Aid off and kind of start over at a bunch of spots there, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just the reality of the situation. And another need I put down, probably wide receiver, just, another guy. And I think this is probably just me going, I don't know how you can count on DJ Moore after what happened last season. I really don't know how you can just say you're just going to jump right back into positive habits. And I say it's to someone you fall off the wagon sometimes, fall into some negative habits. It's kind of hard to just jump right back into what you're doing before. Keenan Allen, it's gone. It wasn't good enough. This is kind of where I get frustrated sometimes with the reaction to the Bears, the reaction to Caleb Williams' rookie season. Shoot, I'm guilty of myself. You're coming in and saying hey, this is a team that can make the playoffs if things break right. It's a team that should have an upside offense if things break right. That obviously was not correct, but that's something that I said. It's not something that the Bears were saying about themselves. Outside of Caleb Williams, it's not something that they were really saying. So I get frustrated sometimes when people are oh man, the Bears they fell way short of expectations. They were supposed to have one of the best offense. No, we said that. We said that. Caleb Williams, you said they won't be punting a lot, but I hope you feel that way about himself. Yeah, as he enters the NFL, it's the number 1 overall pick. So I'm not really too offended at that. But it's just funny. It's another incident of how someone can say something wrong, and then the subject of what they are wrong about gets punished more than the person who said the wrong thing in the first place. Right, exactly. The Stephen A. Smith, equation where that he's gotten so good at. I predicted X, but Y happened, so X is the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole life. That's
I'm not wrong.
That's kind of how it goes.
I didn't get it wrong. You made me wrong, and that's why.
Correct.
That's why you're wrong.
That's why you're a loser.
Hey man. It's exactly. Hey, just shift it around. Hey, move the goalpost. That's keep the sights in line. But
with all that said, this team's not that far away. They're not that far away. This defense. I'm sorry. I still expect this to be one of the best defenses in the league. With Dennis Allen's calling the plays, that's totally fine. That's a good play call. That's a good get for Ben Johnson.
And they return all their starters.
Right. So, we'll see what happens with Jaquan Brisker. Pretty scary, underreported concussion situation. He missed the season. He missed 10 games with a concussion, basically. So
which usually means career ending. If you miss more than 2 weeks, you're starting to miss months. That means something's. But I'm not saying he's wrong, Brisker. I'm saying this is more scary. More, it's that's different than the usual. Concussion. Okay, time 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks. When you're starting to miss a month or the rest of the season, that's more about life concerns than your career concerns. Yeah.
But regardless, they're in a good spot. They're in a good spot on defense, talent wise. It's just there's just something about the Bears, man. Offense is hard in Chicago. I think maybe it just always will be. Maybe it always will be.
It is. I'm starting to look at we do park effects in baseball. We got to start looking at weather effects and field effects for throwing the ball, because when I'm looking at every Bears game, and obviously you just see every time you see the end zone view, there's the goalpost flag whipping side to side. Good thing you have a quarterback that can blaze that ball right through and cut through the wind. That does help. But yeah, I did notice that. And I was like, maybe that has something to do with some of the deflated passing numbers there on the mistake by the lake. Ben Johnson, I actually think, is a better fit with Caleb Williams too. And I don't think he's going to be one that's like, oh, wave away the offensive line. I think Ben Johnson knew where his bread was buttered in Detroit, and he's a not direct, but through Dan Campbell, a Sean Payton guy, and Sean Payton's always a offensive line first building guy. They need a center. That's been a thing for them ever since Sam Mustipher was a center. They're ruining every protection, going the wrong way. And then last year, Shelton was like fine, but it's just, again, he made too many mistakes. They put too much on the young quarterback. So it's like center, and then maybe, a tight end or something, because it's a good tight end class. But that's where I just keep coming back to. Get a center and then figure the rest out. But they need several offensive linemen right there with you. I do like the defense, though. Again, I'm going to get suckered into them again. But yeah, Bears are sitting in a decent spot. All right. And they got picks. That also helps too. All right. Moving on to the Bears' longtime rival, the Green Bay Packers, who cornerback has gotten into a really iffy situation with them because no one has any idea what's going on with Jair Alexander. Eric Stokes is a free agent now, who had a nice year a couple of years ago and has basically done nothing since. So one of the weirder player kind of arcs in my brain, at least. I also thought that edge was another spot that they could address as far as just getting a real pass first guy. We'll see how Lucas Van Ness ascends this year, but so far it's been I also think center is another spot that they could address because of they're losing their center this offseason, Josh Myers, or at least he's a free agent. And I just had a birdie tell me that he's probably moving on. But also a run plugging defensive tackle was the last team need I had. I think they got a lot of fun gap shooters and Wyatt and Clark and my guy Carl Brooks. But I think they need a thumper. They need a 340 pounder. I really like Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker. I like some other pieces they add, especially on the back end. I like their slot. I like the safeties. But corner, plugger, a defensive tackle, and then center. So like spine of offense and spine of defense, kind of, or not really spine of defense. I guess a couple places on defense. But I think also too, and I heard this, is that they might move Zach Tom, who's a right tackle, over to center, and then try and figure out their tackle situation. We'll see how that goes. That's easier said than done, but they have options there. But I do think they are going to have to address center and or tackle. So offensive line, I guess, should be the need as well. But they need some sacks, need a plugger. Yeah, they might need an offensive lineman.
These are some pretty critical needs when you start breaking them down.
You think? Corner,
pass rush, O-line,
pass rusher, and potentially a tackle? Yeah. And they don't have an ace receiver, too. They have a bunch of solid receivers, but they need someone to step up. Love the tight ends, though. Love Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. I will say that.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, they still need that number one receiver that Josh Jacobs was clamoring for on Radio Row at the Super Bowl.
Right.
But man, when you stack it up like that, that's so far down the list. Like, so we might need pass rushers, corners, and offensive linemen. Like that's damn near red alert area, So
I know. I was kind of breaking this down. I'm like,
fade for a year. I don't know. Because they still have so many good pieces, but
they do.
I mean, dude, at this point, could you how could you possibly imagine Jay Alexander is really on this team next year with how the past few years have gone between he's not playing? Kind of seems like they're a little tired of everything that he puts them through. And then Eric Stokes on the other side. Like, I saw Eric Stokes in an article of like a bargain bin player the Falcons should sign, So I don't know.
So that's where he's at.
Right, like that's where he's at. So this is, this is one of those off seasons where you need kind of everything you do to go right for you. But hey, you still got quarterback, still got a good coach, so could be worse.
I know that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, yes, like need a pass rusher, need a corner is scary, but it's like they have other strengths that can kind of help that out. But still, it's just it's a lot of easier said than done kind of things. But the Packers have earned a lot of my trust with LaFleur, and I really like Love. I really do. Still optimistic about him. But yeah, that last year I thought would be a launch year, but it felt more like I don't want to say plateaued, but it was more like we had to address some things. We had to figure out some things this year. And then maybe this is a launch year, but then it's like, but they need that, and that. But we know it's such a young team, the youngest team in the NFL. So they could ascend just naturally all these other guys. So these needs aren't as needy as we think because of the young guys they have. But again, it's easier. It's hard to say that February 20th, as opposed to once we see August and September roll around and who they take in the draft. That can change a lot of things too. That's what happens when you do this in February, not in the summer, and see exactly how they address everything. I do like doing the remnants. I like doing the remnants one, like in May or June, and going like, what do these teams still need? Because it's like all the other stuff actually happened. Get into the next team, the other Packers rival, I guess. That's the Minnesota Vikings. And Charles, this is one of your teams. Interesting team, as always, the Vikings. They always seem to be refreshing and revamping. So what do you think their team needs are going into this offseason?
It's interesting to say this about a team that was as good as defense as they were last year, but they need defense. Like they need, I think they need, interior guys. They could use another real deal pass rush on the outside. A steadier off-ball linebacker, which as we mentioned before, getting harder to find, and even some top flight cornerback talent. Because I feel like when you watch the Viking defense, when you look at the depth chart, man, Brian Flores is carrying a heavy load on this. Really heavy. And he's earning that paycheck. Right, for sure. And when you start breaking down the players that they have, it's a solid group of guys, but it's not. They don't have too many real deal difference makers. I mean, you want to talk about Andrew Van Ginkel being in the right place on screenplays. That's coached too. That's you know what's coming so well that you're able to be in those spots, but that's not necessarily a uniquely rare skill. That's just having a uniquely good coach that's able to put you in the right positions all the time. So what I think about Brian Flores is man, what if you had some real deal difference makers out here? Because everything it's making your life a lot easier because the Vikings, and I really do think their success this season is such a testament to Flores because every little piece of this has to be meticulously organized, put these guys in the right position to succeed at all times because it's really just a bunch of, outside of maybe some of their defensive tackles, a lot of this is just tweener stuff. Someone like Josh Metellus, it's a perfect example where, I remember he had a little spat with our friend Keegan Abdu on Twitter because they couldn't, or he was I'm
positional labeling, right?
I was positional labeling. I'm labeled as a slot, but I don't see myself in slot. And he was like, well, you have some pass rush reps off the edge, and that's fine in a Flores defense, and maybe only a Flores defense, Right. So you're gonna have to see what happens with JJ McCarthy on the other side. I kind of think you let offense play out. Maybe you got some offensive line depth, but overall. You're kind of okay just rolling the ball out there and seeing what happens, especially if Darrisaw's back feeling good by the time training camp runs around. But defense, they definitely need some more difference makers. And I would start on the interior. If we can just get one ass kicker defensive tackle, that would change the complexion of the defense so much. But as it is, Flores is pulling the strings like a puppet master, and he's doing a good job, but he needs some help.
We talked about it because we would do kind of a quick postmortem after the playoffs when they lost to the Rams in the playoffs. You and I kind of both had the same assessments. They need a plugging defensive tackle just to eat some stuff up. And it was, you got to remember, Flores is a Belichick guy. And doesn't this defense feel so Belichick-y? It's this guy only works here. This guy only works here. Here being this defense and this system. Or this guy's unlocked in this. And sometimes it's great. And like you said, Flores earns his keep and deserves every penny and accolade and everything. But it's one of these things that's make your life a little easier. It's just like Shanahan with the offensive line. It's just because you can get away with doing all this doesn't mean you have to. Sometimes it's okay to have good players doing a lot of the work for you. That's why players play. Jimmy's and Joe's matters than X's and O's. So that's why I just always kind of, I'm with you that it's they need a needle mover and they don't have a lot of picks. They got a first rounder, pick 24. They got a third round comp pick, 97. and then they got 2 fifths. So that's it in the draft. And I know they get creative with everything, but they have to get creative again this offseason. A team that has no corners under contract, or their starting corners, I should say. Stephon Gilmore, who did a really nice job last couple of years for the Cowboys and then the Vikings. Byron Murphy, which was kind of an injury buy low kind of candidate, has talent, had a nice year as well. Cameron Byron, free agent. Shaq Griffin, free agent. So their top 3 or the 4 corners are free agents. That offensive system or defensive system that will put someone on corners and they have to play aggressive and strong. It's a little dicey that they have to address it, but it's like, how are they going to do it? Like, I get the theory of, we'll find somebody. And it's like, yeah, you can, but it's just so hard to recreate that over and over and over. So I'm with you. It's like maybe some needle movers either on the back end or getting a true guy up front, especially like a run plugger, just making that life easy. And then interior offensive line, which is just something we talked about a bunch, but just the pressure rates they were giving up is just unsustainable. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It'll just help their run game out as well. I'm talking to Kevin O'Connell at the Super Bowl. I think he agrees. So I don't think we're saying anything out of line here about making their lives easier. He's like, do I have to dial up another perfect red zone play? Like, just make your lives easier. Get some talent on the trenches, I guess. Get into the Lions, though, who won the NFC North last year and were the number 1 seed in the NFC before losing in a divisional round to the Commanders. The Lions are kind of a fun spot where it's more wants, I guess, than absolute needs. Again, they're going to have a new offensive coordinator and play caller, but the Hank Fraley's still there. Dan Campbell's still there. That really does help. And Morton has experience in this offense, being a Sean Payton guy, so that does help. But I went with edge as their number 1 need. And for edge, for me, it was Marcus Davenport. It's a free agent. They traded for Zadarius Smith, but he's 33 at the start of the year. So someone running across from Aiden Hutchinson, a long-term guy, is where my eyes went as someone that they can take maybe the end of the first round. That makes a lot of sense there. Some of the guys that will be available. Again, it's a deep defensive line class. I also said cornerback as potentially one because Carlton Davis is a free agent. They invested a lot in corners last year. So maybe they trust those guys to continue to ascend, Arnold and everybody, and Rakestraw. But we'll see. Maybe they do go there. That's another great spot to take a corner at the end of the first round, just like they did last year. Maybe defensive tackle depth as one as well. And then I had guard and then receiver, but I think those are lower down the priority list. Kevin Zeitler is a free agent, but Christian Mahogany, their 6th round pick, I believe, out of Boston College, did a nice job as a spot starter. I liked him. I had him as a top 100 player in the draft last year. He fell because of medical concerns. And that's the only reason he fell. He probably would have been like a 3rd, 4th rounder. I think almost everyone agreed with that. That's where he was kind of assessed. But he could be a starter as long as his medicals are okay. And then receiver wise, I think they need another bigger body, dirty work guy. Tim Patrick did a great job in that role last year, but they have Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they just need another big body guy. I think that'll kind of fit what they want. And I think they not a big investment, but just a guy that can perform in that role as well. Sitting in a pretty good spot. They got young talent. It's more about just keeping it churning. Just keep it going. Make sure that the holes don't become glaring. Make sure that the future holes have an answer, kind of like what the Eagles do a really good job of. So, pass rusher, maybe a corner, and then maybe a couple other pieces on offense. That's kind of where I went to.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It kind of seems like, the same things we were saying during the season. And also, oh, excuse me. Also, when you have a team that is this good, I feel like when you get down to the end of the season, you're looking at offseason needs. Because I remember saying for the Eagles for a bunch of years, I don't know, just take a pass rusher, take some defensive linemen, take an offensive.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of with this team. I know, right? Just take a trench coat. I don't know.
You can never go wrong taking another pass rusher, find another offensive line.
Yes.
So I would, I don't know who's going to be on the board. We'll have more information about that this week once we get through Indianapolis. But there's I think as we start to look through this draft, there's some options to at the bottom of the first round where you could potentially find some juice. And Aiden Hutchinson's going to play like he was before he got hurt. Where I think up through basically December, he was still leading the Lions in pressures, which is pretty funny to think about, considering how little football he played last year. if you can get him back plus another guy, like you're going to be fine off the edge. And then it's just about finding cornerback depth. But I don't know. They're in a spot where I would just spam linemen in the draft early and, see where the chips fall.
That's how I mean, even like where they're picking, it's like it makes sense for a lot of the guys. JT Tuamalo from Ohio State would make sense. Him and Aiden Hutchinson actually have a great synergy, because he's more of a Saints Patriots guy where it's pushes the pocket. Like guys like that like make a lot of sense. And if they go offensive line, it's like pick your guy. Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, Jonah Salavania from Arizona. Like all those guys are valid at that point. Marcus Mbao from Purdue. Like a lot of guys in that range that'll be available. So again, when you win games and you have a good roster, it's kind of nice where it's not a desperate need. It's more of a high end want, I think is a good way to put it. And just to make sure that you kind of, cross your T's and dot your I's. But that'll do it for the NFC. Thank you, Mr. Forverts, for joining me. All 16 teams there. We'll be closing it out today, and then we'll be back on Tuesday from the Combine. We'll be in Indianapolis. You get in Monday too, right? I get in Monday afternoon.
Yes. Yeah. I get Monday afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay. Oh, well, we'll be hanging out a lot, I'm sure. But yeah, we'll be live. I'm sure we will be. If New Orleans doesn't enough in Indianapolis, let's cap it off. We'll just put a pin at every point of the map. We'll get LA pretty soon too for the draft. But we'll be back on Tuesday doing that. Some more shows also from Indianapolis. All those shows will be there. We have fantasy. We have this show. We have our insiders. We have all the stuff. But I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. Charles, where can they find you? You working on anything this week? Or are you taking a deep breath?
Hell no.
Yeah,
I'm not working on damn thing this week. I was texting our editor, Joey Glino, this weekend because, so first of all, I want to say congrats to my friend Marcel Louis-Jacques. He's getting married in a couple of weeks. We were at his bachelor party. We were at his bachelor party this past weekend.
You played some golf.
And I'm so glad. Yeah, we played some golf out in North Carolina. I'm just glad that we did it last weekend instead of this weekend, because taking a flight from Raleigh to Indianapolis might have killed me. But I was texting, Joey Galino, our editor. And I was like, man, like I'm pretty sick. Like I actually have I had a crazy stomach bug early in the week. And he was like, don't worry about it. Because then I found out he and Al were off this week. So I'm like, okay, so we're chilling this week. Which is good. Because I think, once you get through the Super Bowl, it's going to take a deep breath because things are not over. Got the combine, draft, free agency. There's another sprint. But taking this, week and a half, 2 weeks off, it's good for everybody. So I'm ready to get back to work next week in Indy, though. It'll be a good time.
They had me chomping. Yeah, no, I'm excited too. I was watching some prospects this week and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go again. Ready to talk about these guys. But yeah, we'll have some prospect pods. We'll have some free agency pods coming up because that's right. I mean, that's coming up soon. It never stops in the NFL. Year-long league. Yeah. Haven't you heard?
Got about a month.
But we got about a month. It'll be fun. But also, send those mailbag questions, football301mailbag at yahoosports.com, or leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to jump the line. Emails are great. Videos, voice notes are even better. Reviews are even better than that. Subscribe to us, follow us, rate us. Like I said, 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, because you can watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. So again, make sure to subscribe, like us, do it everywhere. Really appreciate it. I really would. Charles would too. I'm going to speak for him as well. Matt will too. He's not here, but he'll appreciate it as well. But thanks to Madison, Stone, and Wes behind the scenes. Thank you for helping us out, making us look good. Thank you to everybody for listening. See you guys next time.